Hi guys, and welcome to today's class. We are going to cover Unit 3, Lesson 6, which talks about simple verb tenses. Before we get started, I need for you to do three things for me. Number one, I need you to find a quiet space without any distractions. Your TV should be turned off, as well as any other devices that you don't need to view this video. Number two, have all your school supplies and materials ready. Includes pencils, pen, notebook, book, sticky notes, and or anything else that you would use for my class, okay? If you don't have anything ready just yet, the good thing is that you can pause it and then hit play once you're ready. Number three, please be seated and ready to learn. I do not want you on your bed, very sleepy. No, I want you to be seated and ready to learn. And number four, I want you to try to create a working station, whether it's using a table or a desk. It is important for you to have a comfortable space in case you have to write or take notes, which is like today's case, okay? So simple tenses, what is that? Okay, so the tense of a verb tells when it takes place. It refers to time. So anytime you hear the word tenses, it has to do with time. And let's cover and discuss that a little bit further. So first, we have the present tense. And I know that you've heard of this before because we covered this in 5th grade, but we're doing a bit of a review before we get to work on any assignments. So when we talk about the present tense tells that something usually happens in everyday life. You could tell me about the things that you do in the morning. For example, when you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you take a bath, you go to school, your mom drives you to school, and that's good old days when we would go to school. At PRCS, those are some of the things that would happen in your daily life, okay? Also, the present tense usually has no ending, and we're going to talk about this a bit further. Sometimes it ends with S or ES, and this depends on the subject, and it also depends on some rules that we are going to cover today, okay? The second tense, the past tense tells that something has already happened. The past tense usually ends with ed, and when it ends with ed, it's considered a regular verb, okay? Because we have regular and we also have irregular where the spelling changes. The past tense of the verb be is was or were, and this depends on the subject. So if the subject is he, we would say he was. And if the subject was plural, example, they, we would say they were, okay? Then the third simple tense is the future. And when we talk about the future tense, what it does, it tells that something is going to happen, okay? And it's usually formed with the helping verb will or shall, and most likely will, because shall is often used with I or we, but it's rarely used, okay? I just needed you to know that you can also form the future tense using shall. Okay, so this pretty much covers the present, the past, and the future. It gives a brief explanation of what each tense tells. And now we are going to discuss each one a bit more. Let's begin with the present tense. And this is where I want you to take notes, okay? So you should have your notebook with sticky notes or loose leaf paper ready with pens. You could do it in markers, but I want you to take notes of what we are about to talk now. As in everything that, right, most of the things that we've covered in our class, we've had rules that we have to learn because grammar has a lot of rules, and this is no different for the present tense, okay? So rules for forming verb tenses, and we're covering specifically the present tense here. There are 4 things that we have to remember. The first one, when the subject is singular, you add S to most verbs, okay? to make them singular. So if you have a singular subject, you should have the singular form of the verb. The mind-blowing part about this is that the verb is the one that is going to carry the S when it is in its singular form. It's sort of like the opposite with nouns. When we studied forming plural nouns, we learned that there is one pencil, and to form two pencils or more, we would just add an S. And when you'd see the word pencils, you'd say, oh, that's a subject. I mean, that's a plural noun. So in verb forms, it is the opposite. The verb that ends with an S or ES, these are in their singular form of the verb, okay? So all you got to remember is, one, that the present tense works directly with the subject. So anytime we're working with the present tense, you have to keep your eye on the subject. When the subject is singular to most verbs, you're going to add S. Example, run, and the subject is Louis. Louis runs. If we wanted to add an example where we would use let's say that we want to use a plural subject. Let's use they. Then we would say they run. Okay? So all you got to remember for this one is that to most verbs, you are going to add an S. Okay? Let's go to the second one. And the second rule says that to make a verb that ends in S, X, Z, CH, or SH, singular, you add ES. So we say watch, watches. Don't forget that these are this talks about forming verbs in their singular form, okay? Because if you have a singular subject, this is what you have to do. So he is a singular subject, so the verb changes. So let's say he watches, and we add ES because the verb watch ends with CH, okay? Rule number 3, to make a verb that ends in a consonant in Y, singular, you change the Y to I and add ES. Again, the reason why they're saying to make a verb that ends in a consonant in Y, singular, we're trying to change the verb into its singular form because we're working with singular subjects. See, the subject is singular. So if you have a singular subject, you need to have the singular form of a verb. So singular subject means that you need to have the singular form of the verb, okay? Like I said before, the mind-blowing part about this is that to form the singular form of a verb, you need to, the verb is going to change. The verb is going to carry the S or the ES. And it's ironic because we are used to seeing a word with an S and we think that that's plural, but in verbs, it doesn't work like that. So when you have a verb that ends in consonant in Y, you're going to change the Y to I and add ES. Let's look at the example, cry. Let's get this out of the way. Let's look at the verb cry. Let's look at the ending of this verb, right? Let's spell it out. Let me make this a bit smaller. And we're going to look at cry. And you're going to say C, that's a consonant. R, that's a consonant. And then we have Y. Okay? So cry is a word that ends in consonant and Y. Look, consonant and Y. So it's right there. So when that happens, you change the Y to I and add ES. Again, don't forget that we're working with singular subject. So when you're working with a singular subject, such as this one, a key cries, a key is a singular subject. So you look at the verb and you know that this is the singular form. So Aki cries. You change the Y to I, and then you add ES. Let's go to rule number 4. Rule number 4, when the subject is plural, do not change the form of the verb. So this is the easiest one. You notice that you're working with a plural subject. Now we're moving to working with plural subjects. The verb stays in its base form. It does not change, okay? Now, when the subject is singular, the verb is going to change according to the rules. To most, you're going to add an S. To verbs that end in S, X, Z, CH, or SH, you're going to add ES. And to make a verb that ends in a consonant in Y, you're going to change the Y to I, and then you add ES. When the subject is plural, the verb stays in its base form. Okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to pause it, and I want you to write these rules out. So take a moment to do that, and then come back. Okay, so now that you've paused it, and now that you're ready to continue, what you pretty much need to remember is this, okay? Every single rule that we just covered now, it pretty much what it means is this. You look, when you're working with the present tense, you look at the subject. If the subject is singular, the verb changes according to the rules. This means that you could either just add an S, or if it ends with X, Z, S, SH, or CH, you add ES. Or if it's a verb that ends in consonant to Y, you change the Y to I, and then you add ES, okay? And if the subject, if you're reading a sentence and you identify the subject as being plural, or I or you, don't forget that we have 2 exceptions here, the verb stays in its base form. If the subject is plural, the verb stays in its base form. It's important for you to remember that. Let's work with some examples. These 2 examples here are working with the exact same verb, which is try. And try, it's in its base form, okay? That means that it's in its simple form. Okay, so let's read the first sentence. The girl blank, let's pretend this is not here. The girl blank to eat her lunch quickly. So you identify the subject, and that is the first thing that you should do. You identify the subject, because I already told you that when working with the present tense, you have to keep your eye on the subject as well, because if the subject is singular, the verb is going to change according to the rules. So you see try, and you notice that try is a verb that ends in Y, and before the Y, there is a consonant. So there is a rule that talks about verbs ending in consonant in Y, right? Look at your paper. So when a verb ends in consonant in Y, the rule states that you have to change Y to I, and then you add ES. So then it would read, the girl tries to eat her lunch quickly. Let's see what happens when the subject is plural, and we're still working with verb try. The boys blank to eat their lunch quickly. You identify the subject as being a plural subject, because boys is talking about more than one. So if it's talking about more than one, then you know that's plural. So because the subject is plural, you know that you have to keep the verb in its base form. It doesn't change. It stays in its base form. Okay? Are you guys with me? I hope so. Okay. Now let's talk about past and future tenses. And you have to take notes again. It's important for you to take notes. These are the rules for forming verb tenses. And guys, we're working out of the English book. So if you have your English book, or you want to look at the pages that I have uploaded, you can look at pages 132 and 133 all the way to 134. And these are the pages that are covering this topic. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4 rules when forming the past. So we've already talked about the present, and we know that the present has a close relationship with the subject. Now we're going to focus on the past tense, and the good thing about the past tense is that the past tense doesn't really care about the subject, okay? So we don't have to worry about the subject, but we do have to worry about how to form the past tense correctly, okay? So to do that, there are 4 rules. Rule number 1. For most verbs, you're going to add ed. Example, talk, talked. Jump, jumped. Kick, kicked, okay? And this is what's going to happen to most verbs, okay? Number 2, when a short verb ends in a consonant, you double the consonant and add ed. And I'm going to add something else to here. And I need you to write this down, okay? Are you ready? Okay. So this is for rule number 2. And for rule number 2, I want you to write this. There are 3 things that you're going to look for to know whether or not a verb needs to, for this particular verb, you need to double the consonant and then add ed, okay? And this is a part where most of you get confused. So I want you to, pause it if you need to get paper or a notebook and a pencil or a pen, because I need you to copy these 3 steps down. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to see if it is a 1-syllable word. What does that mean? 1-syllable word. When, for example, let's say the word bat, and let's snap our fingers. I can't clap because it'll bother you. So we're just going to snap our fingers. 1-syllable word. Let's see if the word bat is a 1-syllable word. How many times do you have to snap your fingers when you say bat? Let's see. Bat. Bat. See how we only snapped 1 time? Let's say, for example, let's think of a longer word, just so that we get into the habit of working with syllables. Elephant. Let's work with the word elephant. Again, elephant is not a verb, so I just want you to know what dividing the words into syllable, just in case you forgot. The word elephant. Let's see how many times we snap our fingers when we say elephant. Elephant. How many times did you snap your fingers? 3 times, right? Because the word elephant is divided into 3 syllables. Let's see the verb carry. 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 Carry is divided into 2 syllables. So if you were to be working with the verb carry, this is only an example, it doesn't apply here, but if you were to be working with a verb that has 2 syllables, then you know that you cannot use rule number 2. So these are things that we're looking for in order to know if you have to double the consonant or not. So the first thing is you need 1-syllable word, okay? And I want you to draw a box next to this, so that you could do a little check mark once you go through all the process, okay? The second thing that I want you to look for, let's move this down here, and I hope that you guys are copying. Good thing is that you can pause it and then continue. And again, we are working with rule number 2, which is this one. Okay. So, working with rule number 2, and this is the second thing that we have to look for. So the second thing that we have to look for is 1 vowel, okay? Look at the word bat. Is there only 1 vowel in the word bat? Is there? And then I want you to draw a little box, okay? Because we're going to do little check marks, because these are some of the things that we have to look for in order to know for sure that you have to double the consonant. Let's do the third thing that you have to look for. Is that it ends in vowel, ends in vowel of consonant. Okay, it needs to end with a vowel consonant. Now, this rule does not apply to verbs ending with X or to X or Y, okay? These are letters that have vowel sounds, so it would not apply to this rule. They have separate rules. Don't forget that in grammar and in English, there are many exceptions. So letter X and letter Y, they have different rules for this, okay? So did you copy all three of these things? And don't forget to draw a little box next to it here. Okay, so every time you have a one-syllable word with one vowel that ends in vowel plus consonant, you are going to double the consonant. And again, we're not talking about verbs that end with X or Y. You're going to double the consonant and then you add ED. But you need all these three things in order for you to double the consonant. If you only have one, syllable word, but it has more than one vowel and it doesn't end with vowel consonant, then no, it doesn't. Please don't double the consonant because it doesn't apply. You need to have check marks on all of these boxes. Bat is a one syllable word. Let's see, bat. Yes, it is. Is there only one vowel in bat? Yes, there's only A. Good, so check mark. It ends in vowel and consonant. Let's see. Consonant, vowel, consonant. Yes, it ends with vowel consonant. So yes, I do double the consonant and then I add ED. Okay, so I hope that you copied the three things that you're going to look for rule number 2. Okay, let's go to rule number 2. Let me erase this. Before we continue. Okay. So now we are moving to rule number 3. We're here now. And rule number 3 states that when a verb ends in E, you're going to drop the E and add ED. And I know that it sounds silly because why not just keep the E and then just add a D, right? But don't forget that there are other forms that you're going to be learning throughout the school year. So it's important that you know that you have to drop the E and add ED. Right now it sounds silly, but when we're forming verbs with ing endings, it's going to make a lot more sense to you. Okay, so rule number 3, when a verb ends in E, you drop the E and then you add ED, such as hope. Hope, you drop the E and then you add ED. Okay, number 4, when a verb ends in a consonant and Y, change the Y to I and add ED. And the important part about this one is here, it's emphasis on consonant and Y. Some of you get confused with this rule. You see a vowel Y and you automatically think because it ends with a Y that you have to change the Y to I and add ED. No, it is only for consonant and Y. So when you identify a verb that ends in Y, because that's easy to do, you see a verb, you can identify that it ends with a Y pretty fast, right? Pretty quickly. Right here, look. You're like, okay, that's a verb that ends in Y. I want you to look at the letter before it, right here, R. And then I hope that by now you know the difference between consonants and vowels. So you know that letter R is a consonant. So when that happens, when you have a consonant in Y, you change the Y to I, and then you add ED. Okay, and don't forget that this is to form the past tense. To form the past tense, it needs to end with ED for our regular verbs. Okay? So these are 4 more rules that you have to learn. It's important that you memorize them. And because you're able to copy them down, as I told you at the beginning of the presentation, you have that paper with you. And as you're working with your verbs, you're going to be careful and you are going to decide which of these rules applies to the verb that I'm working with. And if you come across a verb where you have a bit of a hard time, you don't know which, you're honest, you're like, teacher, I have no idea which rule I am going to use for this one, try to do the process of elimination, okay? Process of elimination. You get a verb and you have no idea whether you need to use 1, 2, or 3. And you're like, I don't know. So then process of elimination, the word says it, you eliminate, you begin to eliminate. Let's say that you're working with talk, let's pretend. And you're like, I have no idea. I don't know how to form the past tense of talk. So then you're like, I don't know if it's rule number 1. Well, let's see, rule number 2. When a short verb ends in consonant, and then there are the 3 things that we're going to look, 1 syllable word with 1 vowel, ending in vowel consonant, double the consonant and add ed. Oh, but wait a minute. Talk ends with a consonant in consonant. So no, I cannot use rule number 2. Then I go to rule number 3. When a verb ends in E, drop the E and add ed. Let's look at the verb talk. Talk does not end with E, so I cannot use rule number 3, right? It wouldn't make any sense. This rule is specifically for verbs ending in E. So then I'm still confused. I don't know. What do? I go to the next rule, and this one talks about a verb ending in consonant and Y. Talk doesn't end in consonants and Y. No, that would be silly. So if you cannot use rule 2, rule 3, and rule 4 because you've eliminated, which rule do you still have standing? Rule number 1. So then rule number 1 is the rule that you would apply to this verb, talk. Oh, okay, I add ed. So now from talk, it goes to talked. Perfect. Let's talk about the future tense. The future tense, if you notice, it really doesn't have any rules. It just tells you that you use the basic form of the verb with the helping verb will or shall. So to form the future tense, you're going to use, the future tense is always going to be a verb phrase, and you're always going to use the helping verb will or shall. Shall, it's mostly used with you, with I or we, and it's really rarely used. So we're going to focus with will, okay? So the important thing that you have to remember is that you use the helping verb will, and that the main verb, because this is a verb phrase, don't forget, helping verb and main verb, that the main verb is going to be in its base form. Hop, will talk, will bat, will hope, will try. As long as you remember that, the future tense is pretty easy, okay? Okay, so summing up, the tense of a verb tells when the action or the state of being takes place. It tells you whether it's something that usually happens, whether it's something that has already happened, or something that is going to happen. The present tense is the one that tells that something usually happens in everyday life. The past tense tells that something has already happened, and the future tense tells that something is going to happen, okay? So let's try it out. Speak up. Is the tense of each underlined verb present, past, or future? So number 1, all the verbs, just to be very brief in this presentation, all the verbs are already underlined. So all you pretty much have to do is just look at it. You know that verbs that ends with ed are in the past tense. So number one, started, it's in the past tense. Number two, developed, it ends with ed, so it's in the past tense. Number three, lasted. We realize and we see that lasted ends with ed, so we know this is in the past tense. Now let's look at number four, last. Last. It's not in the past tense because it doesn't end with ed. It's not in the future tense because it's not a verb phrase. It doesn't have will last. So then it must be in the present. Remember that the present tense, it's either going to be, the verb, it's either going to be in its base form or it's going to end with s, es, or ies, depending on the rule. So for number four, last, it's in the present tense. Let's look at number five, become. Become is a verb. I don't see ed, right? This is an irregular verb anyways, but we don't see that it's in the past tense. The past tense of become is became. Again, this is an irregular one. We worked with become in linking verbs. Remember that one? Okay. So, and it's not in the future tense. So it's in the present tense. Again, remember that the present tense is linked. It works with the subject. And if the subject is singular, then the verb is going to change according to the rules, which means that it's going to be ending in either s, es, or ies. And if the subject is plural, then the verb is going to stay in its base form. And that is the case here. Okay? Athletes, it's in plural, so that means that the verb is going to stay in its base form. Perfect. So this is in the present tense. And I keep doing that. Okay. So number six, will attend. This is a pretty easy one because you know that when you see a verb phrase, in this case, not only that, but the helping verb is will, and you have the main verb in its base form. This is in the future tense. Okay, will attend, helping verb and main verb. Helping verb is will. Attend, it's in its base form. This is in the future tense. All right. So let's practice. For this practice, you're supposed to write the past tense and the future tense of each verb. So plant turns into planted, and then in the future is will plant. Clap is clapped. Oh, what happened here? Let's look at this one for a minute. Here for this one, here, which rule did we apply to form the past tense? I'm going to give you a few seconds to think of that. And you should have your papers with the charts. Okay, so if you said rule number one, you are correct because rule number one is the rule that you should apply to most verbs and add ed to form the past tense. Now let's look at the second one, clap. Clap. Let's see, clap. Clap is a one-syllable word. Okay, good. But we know that there are three things that we have to look for to know whether or not we have to double the consonant. So clap, okay, only one, so it's a one-syllable word. Let's look at the word clap. How many vowels do you see there? Right here. How many vowels? We're looking at the base form. Clap. Clap only has one vowel. Okay, so another check mark. One-syllable word, check mark. One vowel, check mark. Now let's look at the ending of this word, right? Because for me to double the consonant, it has to end in vowel and consonant. So let's see. A, okay, A is a vowel and P is a consonant. Oh, so it does end with vowel consonant. So then I double the consonant and then I add ed. Okay, you see it there? So what rule did we apply for this one? Which one? If you said rule number two, then you are correct. It is rule number two. Okay, and then you can go back and you can double check to see if it's correct or not. Okay. We could go here. Look, when a short verb ends in consonant, double the consonant and add ed. And that's what we did. Okay, so let's go to number 3. Number 3, we look at the verb in its base form and we see that love ends in E. And we know that there's a rule that talks about verbs ending in E. Let's see. When a verb ends in E, we drop the E and then we add ed. There it is. So we come here and then we drop the E and then we add ed. And this is rule number 3. Perfect. Let's go to the next one. Carry. Now we immediately notice that carry is a verb that ends in Y. So we know that there is a rule that talks about this. So let's see. The rule says that when a verb ends in a consonant in Y, change the Y to I and then add ed. Okay, so here we go. We change the Y to I. Let's see, carry. Carry, we identify that it ends with Y. Okay, there is a Y. And then now I have to look at the letter before it, which is R. And I know that R is a consonant. So carry is a verb that ends in consonant Y. So when that happens, I know that I have to change the Y to I, and then I add ed, and we're using rule number 4. Okay? Now let's go to number 5, hop. Hop. Oh, I know that I have to be careful with those short verbs, right? It's a one syllable word. So let's see, I know that there's something else that I have to look for. Let's look at the word hop. How many vowels in the word hop? Oh, there's only one. Okay, so I'm heading in the right direction, and now I have to find out whether it ends in vowel, consonant. Hop. Vowel, there's a vowel, O is a vowel, and P is a consonant. So the word hop is a one-syllable word that has one vowel, and it ends with vowel consonant. So what do? I double the consonant, there it is, and then I add ed. So I'm using rule number 2. Okay, and these are the things that I want you to do as you're doing. I'm going to leave that there. I'm just going to delete some of the marks that I've made. But this is what I want you to do. I want you to go to each one and double check with the rules, and always check to see if you're doing it right or not. Just take your time. We're not in a hurry, okay? So let's see, what else do we have? So we've already done that. And that's it. So what I want you to do now is I want you to go to the extra page. Okay, let me add this here. Now you're going to work on extra page. And the extra page for today is, let me give it to you real quick. It's page 171. I'm doing this with you as I'm explaining it to you. Okay, so you're going to work on extra practice page. Yes, extra practice page 171. I hope that this presentation helped. I hope that you can, good thing is that you can pause it and then you can listen to it again in certain sections if you need to, okay? Make sure that you have your notes near you when you work on this page, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.